The Kling 2.5 start and end frame feature is one of the most valuable features I think in Gen AI right now, as it allows you to do so many different things. And so in this video, I'm going to be going through some different examples of how you can use the start and end frame feature to create high quality Gen AI videos. Right, so just diving into this now, we're in currently in free pick, and we're just looking at this Nike shoe start and end frame video that I made. Here's just the video sort of breakdown here. In this sort of format that I do for my short form channels. So this is just showing going from start to end frame here, and then switching the start and end frame now. These videos are really simple and easy to do, and you can really make them look nice and realistic if you just follow a few different principles and guidelines. And so obviously, to get started, we've got to generate the images. And so we've got the end one here, we've got the shoe one there, we've got the sort of snake skin, and then the shoe there. And my advice is, in order to get the most realistic result, make sure that, I guess, what you're asking the transition to be by using a start and end frame is somewhat achievable / realistic to some degree. And what I mean by that is, instead of you trying to transition this cup here to a monkey holding it on the moon, the chances of that happening in real life are zero. So a transition is going to have to probably have a lot of hallucinations in it in order to achieve a transition like that looks good. Whereas if you're picking things that are essentially transitions that could actually happen in real life and camera movements that could happen in real life, that's where it's easier to get a more realistic result. So for example, if we're just looking at this one here, so from this shoe to this shoe, if I had to do that in real life, all that is just zooming out as a camera. So it's really easy to make it look like that is realistically happening. And then the snake there is just that added extra bit because I've put the snake there, and it's obviously going to then add some movement to the snake, which I think looks kind of realistic as well. Similar thing with this here. This, you might say, is not necessarily realistic. Would this happen in real life? Not necessarily at that speed, but going from the snake's sort of shell to the skin, you can see that as a realistic transition happening, which is why it looks okay. I have another few examples as well where, you know, this is another one where all it is just zooming in from position A to position B. And this sort of stuff works really, really well because, as I said, you're just not asking the AI model to really have to work hard to think about how do I make a transition that is realistic here. I'll show you one that didn't work, whereas this one here, because I'm asking the video to go from him at the table here to basically stood up in a position here. And the problem is that because he's here, right, that is the end frame and that is the start. Where does that table go? The table is really not there. So he would have to walk around the table and then be in front, and the table then would not be there. So I'm asking too much there, which is why he walks through the table and it then just appears, which creates something that isn't realistic. I have some of these just sort of trending celebrity ones that are going viral. Again, this is just a start and end frame. Again, you say this is kind of not realistic. This is, I guess, kind of an example of the cup to the monkey on the moon, where I am technically going from point A to point B, which is completely different. He's in the kitchen there. Here he's in some sort of hall. But I feel like you kind of get away with it with this 360. Actually, 360 changing here actually handles it quite well. And so that's where I find, you know, if you are going for a really ambitious transition that is not realistic, as in like it wouldn't be possible in real life, if you use that sort of 360 orbital thing, it could work. And there are a few other ways to doing that. Got another nice one here where it's just a bag transition. I saw this on Balenciaga's Instagram page, where they did something similar, where I've basically just converted the bag into a cloud bag, and then you're just prompting sort of a cloud transition, and it just goes from that. Again, that's another nice little start and end frame transition where you've got a product and you turn that product into like a different color or a different like a silhouette or something, and everything else stays the same. It's exactly the same position, and then it will then create like some form of transition, which is really nice. Again, just using Nano Banana Pro to basically change the images. Got one here of like these can work sometimes quite well. These that not so well, but the ones where it's like a smaller piece of a bigger puzzle, these sometimes can work really nice. This one is okay, but you see it morphs here. I probably would say that is not a great start frame. It would be better if it's probably on I don't know what you call the planer when it's like that, but not angled like that, because if you look here, what would be much better is if we look at the end frame and we look at the position of these circle, that little dial thing, whatever you call it, or let's just go this one here, and actually the start frame, you see how it's not in that same position? So the start frame would be better if it was just that, because then what would happen is that would zoom out from that, and that wouldn't do the morphing that's happening here, because how does that fit into that? It doesn't, which is kind of what you need to ask yourself when you're looking at the start and end frame, is just evaluating how they can be kind of, connected together somehow. So yeah, that's something you really need to think about. And just some other ones here. I've got another sort of camera one here. This is a great one just for showing a simple camera angle change, like really nice there. Really no hallucinations, because that camera angle and movement would realistically happen. Here's one from that other scene where I'm now just asking to do sort of a 180 pan, which looks quite nice. After I had keep this bit in where I've gone to this, and then somehow, right, so to actually just create one of these, I'm just going to show you how to do it in Higgsfield. You can do it in FreePic as well, it doesn't matter. So we're going to use Kling 2.5 Turbo, and you see you've got start and end frame here. All we're simply going to do is we're going to drag in our start frame. So I'm going to drag in that Nike shoe, and then I'm going to drag in the one with the snake. You can put a long prompt in here by going into ChatGPT or Google Gemini and describing what you want, or you can just do something really simple like slow zoom out with snake coming out of the shoe. That's very basic, but usually it works. You can then decide either 5 or 10 seconds, depending on how long you think you need. I like to go either or. Sometimes you can go 10 and then you can just speed it up because it might be in slow, but let's just try both so that we can just see the differences here. So we'll go 1 5 seconds and we'll go 1 10 seconds. 1080 and 720 might save a little bit of credits, doesn't really matter, but if you're credit conscious, always generate on the lower resolution until you have decided kind of what you want your final outputs to be, and then go to 1080. Right, so just looking at these generations, this is the 5 second one. Little bit of weird shit there. That's not too bad. It's good up until then, but then the snake goes to shoe, so I would probably regenerate that. And then just looking at the 10 second one, obviously you can see here the zoom out is a little bit slower. Again, some weird hallucinations there. Looking at that, I would probably say the 5 second one is okay for me for this example. And so I would just focus on the 5 second one there. But as you can see, pretty simple movement. And you just kind of repeat that process for the different scenes. And then you can just then put them on the timeline like this when you're, connecting them together in a sequence, adding some music and some sound effects to kind of just add a bit more to it, and then you can get a really nice sequence like that, and you can apply this to loads of different use cases. Great for products, great for transitions. I'm going to be exploring a lot more with start and end frame. I already have started to, but I want to do a lot more with this because I just think it's a really good feature. But yeah, hopefully that gives you some ideas and just understanding of how to use this. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. But other than that, have a nice week, and I'll see you in the next video.